Logan has only been out for 3 days, and it's already challenging what we expect from a superhero film. I'm Sasha Perl-Raver, and this is Screen Junkies News. Logan slashed its way onto screens this weekend and has already grossed $88.3 million domestically, making it the fourth best domestic opening ever for an R-rated movie, with Deadpool at number one with $132 million. Both of those films cost less than $100 million to make. If you compare that to family-friendly films like X-Men Apocalypse, which had an estimated budget of $178 million, but opened with only $65 million and had a worldwide gross of $543 million versus Deadpool's worldwide gross of $783 million, we can just go ahead and guess that Fox is probably having meetings at this very moment about the direction of their X-Men universe. With me to talk about that future is Mark Andreyko, Markia McCarty, Dan Murrell, and on social, Mr. Matt Key. So guys, do we think that there is a lesson for Fox to learn here? Mark, what do you think?
I think there's a lesson for everybody to learn here about superhero films. I think the genre has been absorbed so quickly by popular culture that let the ratings serve the story. Don't make a movie PG-13 because you think you're going to get that much more money. Because Deadpool particularly is a really hard R film. It's a kind of filthy, it's funny, but it's filthy. And it made almost $1 billion. If they had tried to make a PG Deadpool, it would have never worked. And it shows that audiences are there. If you tell a good story, the rating is inconsequential, and not to be afraid of those R-rated movies anymore.
What do you think, Markia?
I think that the lesson to be learned from it is that it's not a superhero movie. You know, it's not a mutant movie. It's a movie. It's high drama, it's action. It's kind of more like a Western that Logan was, with parallels in it, and it happens to have mutants in it. So I think the lesson to be learned is that let these superhero movies cross genre.
Well, I mean, to bring up a very sore subject for Fox, Fantastic Four, which was actually produced by Hutch Parker, who was one of the producers on this film, as well as X-Men Apocalypse and Days of Future Past. What do you think, comparing like Fantastic Four and Logan, what's the takeaway?
Story. It's story, 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 story. There was a time when the name of a superhero team or the name of a superhero was all you needed. You could open the box office with, it's an X-Men movie, everybody's going to go see it. It's a Batman movie, everyone's going to go see it. It's, you know, whatever movie it is. There's so many comic book movies now that it's all about the story that you're telling. That's why Logan, I think, did so well. Was it wasn't because it was a Wolverine movie. It was because people heard that it was a great movie, which it was a great movie.
And it was also a very personal movie. It wasn't an end of the world movie with a giant kind of butthole cloud in the sky like it was a movie. It was a movie about a man dealing with his own mortality and dealing with the loss of his loved ones. And it became a micro story in a macro world. And I think going back to Fantastic Four, I think part of the problem with Fantastic Four was every time they made those movies, Fox had a ticking clock. They were reverse engineering a movie to meet a release date. And now, hopefully, they'll say, hey, let's do a Fantastic Four movie. Let's make them the Beatles and set it in the 60s. Let's do something different because audiences' tastes have expanded. You know, if Watchmen opened today, it would be more successful because of Deadpool, because the audiences, our diet has expanded for what these movies can be, as opposed to only expecting the same 5 action movies over and over again.
Yeah. And part of that diet and part of sort of the change in what we're sort of taking in is that the themes have gotten so much more mature, and it's less about big explosions, it's more about like the emotionality of whatever they're telling. So Markia, what do you think in terms of what audiences will expect? Do you think people are going to be like, I want to cry 4 times? From now on, when I see a superhero movie, I want to cry my face off.
Yeah, I want to be able to relate to these superheroes. That is so important. That's what we grew up with. That's why we read the comic books. Yes, it's escapism. So sure, we'll have that sci-fi future where, you know, there's gene therapy and you isolate the X gene and it can be transferred to other people. Sure, yes. But along with that, I want themes like redemption. You know, I want to have a coming of age. You know, just because they're happen to be a mutant or happen to be a superhero doesn't mean that they aren't a person.
Right.
So you have to make it personal because there is so much out there. Superhero-wise, Netflix has something, Hulu has something, and keeps on coming out in the movies. You have DCU, you have MCU. So what is it about your superhero movie that's going to make me spend my hard-earned doll hairs to make it, you know? So you've got to bring something else to the table.
Mark?
And what I thought was really fascinating about Logan was the way we are now politically. There were themes in there that were not intended by when they made the movie, but the themes about getting across the border, about more acceptance, safety in Canada because Americans don't want, and the metaphor about making New Mutants in Mexico. That means something a lot different today than it would have if the movie came out 6 months ago. And it was, it's like when George Romero did Night of the Living Dead, there was the metaphor of seeing the soldiers come back from Vietnam. That was not part of it, but it absorbed it by osmosis and culture. So there were so many themes, there was so much depth to Logan that wasn't there, that you can't write off a movie just because it's a superhero movie.
Sure,
Sometimes these movies that are genre, you can get away with more potent political commentary because you have the veneer of fantasy.
Well, and that was what they were based on in the beginning. I mean, it was like Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X being Magneto versus Professor X.
Yes.
Dan, you seem like you have something you're chomping at the bit to say.
Well, no, it's really just, it's like you're saying, are people going to demand superheroes that have to cry 4 times? I think that's going to be, again, that's going to be the lesson I'm afraid that too many people are going to say. They're going to like, okay, well, Logan did well, so people want serious superhero movies. That's not necessarily what people are saying. I think when you look at the ones that have broken out, Deadpool, Logan, and I'm talking about new ones like Logan, even though people know Wolverine, it's a departure, I think. Deadpool, even though people knew Deadpool, it's different. Guardians of the Galaxy for Marvel. Why do these movies break out so much more than other ones perhaps do? And it's because of it's got that certain something. And I think what you find behind each one of those, and James Gunn and Ryan Reynolds and the team that made Deadpool, and James Mangold and Hugh Jackman, is passion for the characters. Passion for the character, a real investment in the character, an investment in what those characters are going to do and how they end up. And that's the X factor, no pun intended. That's the X factor. They're not making it cynically, they're not making it because they have to. Doctor Strange was fun, but it felt like, to me, it was an above par formula Marvel movie. They think they made it because they had to put Doctor Strange in the MCU. It didn't really transcend for me.
Well, and
these movies are on a different level because you can tell that there's filmmakers that are like, no, I want to take these characters, I want to do something different, I want to take these characters somewhere that means something. Yes, it's about superheroes, but it's about characters first.
And they're self-contained.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You have all the pluses of being in a superhero universe, but these movies all stand on their own. My 65-year-old aunt saw Deadpool in the theater twice. The last movie she saw in the theater twice was probably Love Story in 1970. So when you make these movies that have all the pluses of being part of a superhero world but work, it's why Empire Strikes Back works as the best Star Wars movie. You don't need to see the rest of them. But if you do, there's an accent there. But if you watch that movie, it works as a movie. And Logan and Deadpool and Guardians all work as individual movies. You want to see more, but you're getting a satisfying meal in that 90 minutes or 2 hours you're spending there.
I like to call that the bonus Jonas. Just FYI, like the thing that is like the added extra. But here's the thing, you guys, you're totally not thinking about the fact that Hollywood just cares about making money. And they're like, oh, that made money. We have to do that thing. So we can assume that Marvel and DC and of course Fox are probably sitting around talking about how to make more R-rated movies. But we have a quote from Hutch Parker, who, like I said, was the producer. And he said, look, statistically and historically, you look at the success of R-rated movies, and they are more limited. So what Deadpool did for the whole industry, frankly, was kick open the door to the possibility. Now, at the same time, it requires that you be really bold, really original, excellently told, and really well performed. You still have to do a series of things that are extremely hard to do and that Deadpool did so extraordinarily well, but it certainly made that feel like a more viable possibility. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, Deadpool, R. Logan, R. What is the next R-rated superhero movie we're gonna see?
Phoenix. I want Dark Phoenix. I want them to have her go all the way R-rated because she is an absolutely terrifying mutant. She is terrifying, but she hasn't been in the movies. She hasn't been under a PG-13. So now that, the buckles are off, go ahead and have Dark Phoenix, the universe destroyer, the planet destroyer, have her be R-rated.
Well, that makes sense because then the number crunchers will go R-rated superhero movies. Both of the successful ones are R-rated X-Men movies, so let's make more R-rated X-Men movies. Hopefully we won't have like New Mutants sitting around saying fuck and shooting up or anything, because that doesn't necessarily work. Yeah. But an intense alien level intensity of Dark Phoenix, yeah, it should be scary. We should embrace the fact that, like I said earlier, let the rating serve the story you're telling. Don't reverse engineer to serve a rating.
But I want to know what character you would like to see go R.
I would like to see an R-rated Batman movie. I think Dark Knight was basically, and Dark Knight Rises were basically R-rated, but I want to see R-rated. I want to see an R-rated Joker. I want to see embrace the madness of the Joker.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be gratuitous because the thing about Logan, it's R-rated and it's violent, but the best thing about it was the violence hurt, and his character talks about takes a bit of his soul. It wasn't just violence for violence's sake. It was responsible violence. So the R-rated movie wasn't just swear words and boobies. This was violence because the violence had impact. And I think you can tell impactful stories with an R rating.
Not that there's anything wrong with swear words and boobies. Dan, where would you want to see it go?
I would like to see these R-rated movies, if possible, to kind of extend into the cinematic universes where applicable. For example, there's a character, Mark, help me on this, I want to make sure I'm getting it, Lobo in the DC universe. It's a little Deadpool-esque. He's kind of a rogue. He's kind of a...
He's the pre-Deadpool
He's the
in a lot of ways.
Deadpool, and I think in that universe that they've created, there could be a corner for him in an R-rated film that would just be, this is a little pocket of the DCEU that is R-rated.
I can pitch you Deadpool right now, or Lobo right now. Lobo is Deadpool meets Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh,
Right,
love
exactly.
it.
That's
It's
what you do.
intergalactic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's a character that, but it
alien
lends
bounty
itself to
hunter.
that. You're not hammering in a square, peg in a round hole.
Sure.
This is a character that it would fit. But I would also like to see, if these movies work well, and they're working as outliers. Deadpool, Logan, they're outliers to the overall film continuity. I think now, if we could see them folded into the fabric of these things, they would make them so much more multidimensional and really give them different aspects. And so it's what all of these extended universes need right now. They need to feel a lot less samey and to feel like, here's your pocket where you do this, here's your pocket where you do that.
And they need to be like a salad bar where you don't have to eat everything at the salad bar. The problem that I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to experience, they're starting now, is you feel like you have to watch every single one of them. And the moment this feels like a burden on your audiences, they're going to defy you. You should want to see these movies, not have to see these movies.
I think the problem is with them is that the characters are so interchangeable. It's like you can keep on, Jean Grey can be anybody. Why? Because she's not defined. She hasn't been defined. She's been defined like maybe by the characters around her, but not so much her. So, we don't have Patrick Stewart or a Hugh Jackman when it comes to other characters in that universe.
Right.
So it's like with what Mark keeps on stressing, story. Let the rating match the story. And I want Mallrats with Jubilee, and that can be PG-13, no problem with it.
Yeah.
But
Can you imagine the
Jubilee.
Breakfast Club with the New Mutants?
Oh my God.
Kind of like what they're trying to do, what it looked like Spider-Man Homecoming is going to be.
Yeah,
Play
like
with
John
the
Hughes.
genre. You hook the people with that it's superhero, but expand the worldview there.
Yes,
Yeah.
make these characters count, make them matter.
Let's bring in Matt Key to
Yes.
let's fact check all this. What's going on with you over there in the social chair, bud?
Oh man, so much. There's nothing to really fact check, but I will. I pulled some quotes while you guys were talking. Dan, you were mentioning earlier the fear that maybe a lot of the films are repeating themselves. They're starting to feel a little bit more and more formulaic. So James Mangold, talking to Variety, said, "You're just looking for a way, and I think studios are too, to just shake things up because everyone feels that there's a certain amount of exhaustion setting in. We can't keep doing the same movie over and over again." Jeff Bach, an analyst with exhibitor relations, also in that same Variety article, said, "It's all about continuing to move the genre forward and be more malleable. You can't pitch the same PG-13 movies over and over, or they will become very stale."
And look what's so successful right now. You have Logan, a hard R, making over $250 million worldwide this weekend, and you have a Lego Batman movie, which takes the crown jewel of the Warner Brothers DC universe and makes fun of it. So that shows the diversity that we can do.
Yeah.
And the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been great so far, but I think Disney is now going to be looking like, we can't be making this continuity we can do, but we have to open the doors a little because now they're the grandfathers of the superhero movies. Now they have to run the risk of either evolving or dying if they don't catch up.
Interesting.
It's that quote you're saying from Hutch Parker is, if Disney wants to stay in the game, they're going to have to take a risk. They're going to have to go out of the lines of their sandbox, and they're going to have to say, okay, I'm going to do this.
And that
But if
doesn't mean
they
it doesn't mean
do-
our rating either. That means just opening it up a little and letting it be a little
Be
bit more
bold, be
experimental.
original.
I think that if
bring
they do or
something.
when they do, it's always going to be in Guardians. But Matt, is there something you want to add?
Well, I just had another quote I wanted to throw in from IKEA if you
Sure.
guys are done. So you were talking about the Dark Phoenix story. Simon
Yes.
Kinberg to Slash Film had a quote where he said, "The main mistake we made in X-Men 3 was taking the Dark Phoenix story and making it the subplot of the movie as opposed to the main plot of the movie. I think if we were to make a Dark Phoenix movie in the future,
Wink, wink, wink.
it would be a Dark Phoenix movie about her struggle and really should be the A plot and the primary of the movie." So I think that's exactly what you would get, and it would lend itself to R ratings. So maybe that's the meetings that they're having this week.
Oh man, there's so many
All right.
meetings happening this week.
so many.
And we want to know, how do you think Logan is going to change the course of superhero movies? Let us know in the comments below. You can always tweet us at SJ News. Make sure to like and subscribe. And of course, you can always click here for more Screen Junkies. We'll see you again real soon.